guys? Welcome back to the channel. We have a very special episode today. We are doing viewer thoughts and theories leading into the Mando Season 3 finale. But we're also going to initiate some conversation on both Guns for Hire and The Spies, because last week was a bit of a posting mess and we didn't get a chance to answer any questions on either. So we're going to have a conversation on both those episodes today based on what you guys have thought of these last two episodes, and then we'll see what your theories are going into the finale.
Yeah, let's do it.
Should we start with our favorite episode, Guns for Hire?
Let's start with that. Yeah, we didn't get to any of those questions last week, and I know there was a lot of thoughts people had. Controversial episode, but again, I don't know that it's necessarily that warranted. I mean, it was a little weird. I didn't think it was the worst episode ever. It was just like watching a disjointed Clone Wars episode with Lizzo. Still don't know why they decided to cast her of all people. Yeah, I mean, it seems like some other people felt pretty strongly. Actually, some other people also commented and were like, I don't get why everyone hated this so much. So it's kind of all over the board. I think it was probably more disliked than liked. If you look on IMDb, I think it's one of the lower rated Mandalorian episodes. It's in the 6s or something. But yeah, let's jump in and see what people have to say.
Yeah, let's do it. Where do you want to start? You want to start from the bottom of the comments and work our way up, or?
Well, I think a good one to start on, actually, is Timothy Whitfield wrote, super fun and very Clone Warsy, if that's a word. Great, calmer episode before shit goes down in the last two episodes. Yeah, I mean, it was like that's the word that I kept coming into my head too, was Clone Warsy, and that's a valid comment to make as well, which is like, it was fun, you know? It's like it wasn't. I don't think it was an amazing episode, but it was like fun and whatever. And there were some elements of it that I thought were good. It just was very messy writing.
In the context of 8 episodes, it's bad.
Yeah.
That's my take on it. Like, if you're only giving yourself 8 episodes in a season, whereas like the Clone Wars would have, I think, anywhere between like 16 and 22 episodes per season, roughly. I think in the context of 8 episodes, it's a bad episode. Because you don't have time to do stuff like this. If you have 16 episodes for Mandalorian, then sure, by all means. It's like, I'm not going to have a huge problem if you do one of these episodes once in a while, because they can be important for character development. And I did enjoy the relationship between Din and Bo. I did like that aspect about their relationship, because they have like a fun, quirky kind of banter. But when you're limiting yourself with a certain amount of episodes per season, you need to be more efficient.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, you're right. There is only 8 episodes, so it's like, what story are we telling here? Why are we wasting time going on this side mission where there was really only like 5 minutes of actual plot forwarding content? And like, it's the same could be said for the 3rd episode or whatever, 3rd or 4th, whatever, when they're in Coruscant with Dr. Pershing, that whole episode. I mean, that was a whole lot of nothing. It was 50 minutes of just like
nothing.
We followed Dr. Pershing around for this whole time. Like, there just wasn't a whole lot there. So I think, yeah, with that in mind, it's like a little frustrating throughout the whole season to see how they've used the time in these episodes. Coleman Barber wrote, reminds me of a video game where I take a side quest to get to the main quest. I had fun with this one, not my favorite, but I enjoyed it. I think that's fair too. Like, definitely not, I didn't hate it. Not my favorite. It was enjoyable watching. Like, there was some, like, the droid bar stuff and the fight scenes and, like, seeing the super battle droids and stuff. And the fight, you know, like, with Bo at the end. It's cool stuff, but you're right. He's totally right. It's like it's literally a side quest. They go solve the droid problem. And I'm like, okay. They packed in too much. It's like you're going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. And then this happens, and then this happens, and this happens. And it was just, I don't know.
Choppy.
Very choppy, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so Back to the Future Fan 88 left a very hefty comment here, but I do want to read some of these points. The first one being is, so what was even the point of Din winning the Darksaber in the first place if he never got the chance to get any better with it and then just gives it away to Bo-Katan on a technicality? I've seen so many people saying that, well, Din never wanted the Darksaber, he just wanted to be a background character. Why couldn't Din's character get the chance to grow and accept the new position he's in? What was so wrong about Din going on a journey to earn the respect from other Mandalorians who would later follow him as their leader? And given the reason Din gave Bo the Darksaber, by that logic, shouldn't Luke Skywalker be the Mandalore? It's I'm working backwards here because Back to the Future fan 88 gave it was a comment on one of my videos, and I was like, oh, technically that's not wrong. Where it's like the let me see.
Based on that technicality, if we look at all the other stuff that's happened with the Darksaber, that's a really good point.
I think okay, I want to try to find this original comment. If you'll just give me a second. Yeah. So I found it. So Back to the Future fan 88 commented on my reaction video for Guns for Hire, and it says, Obi-Wan defeated Pre-Vizsla, Maul defeated Obi-Wan on Mandalore, Sidious defeated Maul, Sidious was defeated by Vader on the Death Star in Return of the Jedi, Luke defeated Vader by turning him back to the light side of the Force, if you want to call that a defeat, so Luke Skywalker is the Mandalore. Yeah, if we're gonna go off pure technicality here.
Yeah, I think that was just lazy writing. Just like, okay, she gets it by technicality. He didn't really want it, and then people are like, yeah, he just wanted to be in the background. Okay, well, that's not interesting for a character. Why is he the main character of the show if he just wants to be in the background? Why isn't he just a regular guy? Like, this doesn't make any sense. He's been the main character, or at least one of the main characters, for the last 2 seasons, and I get now that every single season is probably about someone else, as we've talked about in previous episodes. But if that's what you're doing, you need to make that more clear, A, and B, he's still, like, Din was still a main character last season and the season before. Like, he still had a story arc. He doesn't have an arc here, really. He had an arc for 2 episodes, and he went to the Mines of Moria and got into waters of bathingness and whatever. And now it's just he wants to hang out in the background. I'm sorry, that's bad writing. So I agree with you, Back to the Future fan 88. I think this is actually a really good point. Why couldn't Din's character get the chance to grow and accept the new position he's in? I totally agree. Yeah, like that's infinitely more interesting because now he hasn't grown. Now he's just the same guy that we saw in the Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian season 2. He's had no development whatsoever. So I think this is a really thoughtful comment, and I totally agree. He ends up by saying, "I'm really disappointed in this season." I'm a little disappointed too, to be honest, and this is a good reason why. Like saying he won it by technicality. Like, come on, guys. Like,
that's so
technically
boring.
This happened a while ago when we were in the little Bugman place. Okay,
where
fine.
The Bugman was apparently the leader of Mandalore for 5 minutes.
Yeah, like I agree. Why would you give him the Darksaber in the first place? Like, I thought it was going to be him rising up to then learn how to lead the other Mandalorians, But then they just kind of said, "Just kidding." No, Bo, who's had it by the way before, like she always wants it. And now she gets it, and it's like, okay, well, it's just, I don't know, not interesting to me.
It's just, they had the perfect setup last season in season 2, because at the end, when Din takes off his helmet, that really comes off as like he's rejecting the cult that he's been raised on, and he's saying, look, I love this kid more than I love my own creed, which I think is really powerful writing. It's like a very kind of, it's a self-denial kind of love. It's like you're denying your creed so that you can give everything to this kid who's like changed his heart. And they had perfect setup for season 3 to do something really compelling where Din could be the one to unite, with Bo's help, the 2 Mandalorian factions. But they just took the cheap way out. And this comment in saying that why couldn't Din's character get the chance to grow and accept the new position he's in, I think that was the biggest waste of the season. Is you could have challenged him in a lot of interesting ways, and now essentially he's just stagnant, like you said. So
yeah, and I mean that's a good point too, is like him giving that up would have been interesting, his creed. But I also thought that's the direction they were going in anyways, because he took off his helmet at the end of the 2nd season to say bye to Grogu, and you're like, oh, he's evolving, he's not in this stupid cult anymore.
Yeah.
And then he just goes, oh, no, never mind, I gotta redeem myself. And I'm like, that's not, God, it makes me like the character less, honestly. I'm like, oh, you're so blinded by this creed that you have that you can't be a regular normal person. That's annoying to me. And like, he went backwards. In fact, he went backwards, and then that ruins everything with the Darksaber. So I don't know. It's just, it makes the story less fun.
The one
and interesting
constant of life is that people change, or they should. You should change, and you should grow, and you should evolve and form your opinions on things. And you're not going to be the same person in your 20s as you are in your 40s. That's just a fact of life. And so I have to agree with you. It does make the character of Din less appealing, less relatable.
Yeah.
Because he just chose to stay on the same path.
I agree, and like, you're less relatable is a good way of putting it. It's like you had this progress where he has his helmet off. He's starting to see the world in a different way. That's progression. Then he regressed back to, I need to go back to how I was doing things before. Like, why? So you can satisfy the armorer? Like, I'm sorry, but that motivation never made sense to me. Like, why are you bathing to be forgiven for your transgressions? Who cares, dude?
You know what
Move
would have
on.
been you know what would have been more compelling is like what if the armorer was the one who found him as a kid? Like that would make more sense to me if she was like the mother figure to him, like and had an actual connection where she was the person who found Din as a child and like saved him from the droids invading his planet. Like I at least would understand that a little bit more because he would have more of a connection to her. But
Yeah,
even
it's
that's
like
not
they
explained super
haven't
well.
put the work in. They haven't put the work in with all these characters. So they're just they're here and they expect you to know everything about them, but they haven't showed us anything about it to make me give a shit about the armorer. I still don't like the armorer really. I've always kind of been like, what the hell is she? I don't know what she's supposed to be or like why people care about her. Also, like, is she the leader? Then she's telling Bo to be the leader. Now Bo's kind of the leader, but Din has the dark saber, so he's the leader. Be more clear about this. So I don't think any of that was. And you know what the problem is too? It's like part of the problem is they haven't had enough episodes to get into this stuff. They're
Yeah,
just going,
that's
this
what I'm
happens, then this
saying.
happens, then this happens, then this happens. And, even with the second season, that's one of my criticisms of it is it should have been a little bit longer and they could have done more development across the board, with even Moff Gideon and the Armorer and Paz Vizsla and the rest of the covert, like have some more interesting side characters there. Make longer episodes. Let these episodes breathe. But yeah, I agree. I mean, this season overall, like, it's just very choppy. It's not cohesive and well explained. Like the character motivations just don't add up at the end of the day.
It's funny because you know how the miniseries are, the rise of the miniseries in like the 80s. They would have all those shows that would be 8 episodes. Is I don't know if that tactic has ever really worked for Star Wars. Only having like 8 episodes per season. I think it works really, really well for like 16 to 25 episodes per season, like the Clone Wars and the Rebels and Bad Batch. And you think like with a limited space, like 8 episodes, they would work harder to make sure that the story was more cohesive, especially like in the way that movies are done too. It's like if you're only giving yourself a 2-hour time slot, you better be sure that every single scene has value to the rest of the movie because you don't have time to waste. So I just find it really funny and ironic that with fewer episodes, they seem to be messier when I would have expected tighter writing because you have a more limited space to tell a story.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, 8 episodes, it's weird to me. I don't know. I feel like TV shows seasons get shorter and shorter. And it might be a budget thing, but at the same time, dude, it's Disney. I'm sorry. You can come up with a budget. I don't want, that's a bad excuse. Like, this is one of the biggest brands that you own. You can't invest in it a little bit more. Like, that's not a great excuse.
Quantity over quality, that's what they're all about.
That's what they're going for. Middleman 8 wrote, as this season has progressed, I've become more convinced that this season has been saddled with laying groundwork for the larger plot that will cross over to other shows. Yes, correct. Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, Book of Boba Fett. But that's negatively impacted the product. Yes, we've already seen that with the intertwining of Book of Boba Fett Season 1. So when
You
fans,
think if they're laying the groundwork, it would be more efficient.
yeah. So when fans, myself included, say the season doesn't have the same focus the previous two did, I think that's because it actually doesn't. And when the audience says Din or Grogu have been sidelined in their own series, that's probably accurate. Then there's the jarring, truncated character story arcs this season, like Din's atonement and Bo reclaiming the darksaber. My theory is these areas and perhaps others weren't given the same attention compared to earlier in the seasons, because the Mandalorian is doing some heavy lifting it wasn't doing before. That is, developing other characters and establishing new plot threads for a larger narrative. Looking back now, I see those two Din and Grogu-centric episodes from the Book of Boba Fett not simply as the Mandalorian Season 2.5, but also Mandoverse episodes, serving to set the table or move the furniture for Season 3 of Mandalorian, because they knew they wouldn't have time to cover it with everything else it was taking on. I want to believe this filler side quest episodes of this season are actually world-building episodes for the larger narrative they are going to tell in the Mandoverse, so I might be able to hope that it'll pay off in some way down the road. However, I don't think that totally excuses the step back in quality we got in Season 3. I'm certain they didn't have the intention to sacrifice Season 3's execution, but I do think they would have approached things differently if they had to do it over. I mean, just adding 4 to 8 more episodes and or extending the length of each episode would have made a difference. Timing is probably a factor too. If they had properly fleshed out Season 3 plot points while keeping the original 8-episode format and pacing, it'd probably be Season 5 before we reach this point in the series. I suppose the too long didn't read of what I'm saying here is the scope of the season exceeded the format of the series. Even if it just partially explains what happened, though, it makes it a bit easier for the Star Wars fan to accept it now. I'm optimistic for Season 4 to get back on track and have the other shows had the chance to establish themselves. That's a well-written comment. Very thoughtful,
that is
actually.
very
well put. I mean,
comment.
I like the point you made about the moving the furniture, which I totally agree with. They're setting the table or moving the furniture because they're trying to set up all these other things now. And that's exactly what we saw in Book of Boba Fett Season 2, where they had Mandalorian reunite with Grogu because they're like, we have these other characters and things that we want to set up in Season 3. And this is where I think Kathleen Kennedy probably came in and was like, here's the other things we need to cover. And we need to do this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I bet you Jon Favreau got pissed off. But I do like the end of this comment, which is hopeful, because I agree by Season 4, I bet you we will be back on track, and it'll probably be a more Season 2-like season. I just think this one's a little bit of a mess because of what this commenter said, which is like they're setting up Skeleton Crew, Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett, and it distracted from what the show's actually about. The show is just a bridge between other shows, is what it feels like.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right there. The other thing that this comment kind of brings up in the back of my head is, did you see that comment from Jon Favreau where he was like, yeah, we don't really have an ending planned out for The Mandalorian. Like, it could go on for, like, 5 or 6 seasons. And I'm like, oops, don't want to hear that.
I heard that, but I also heard him say something, too, or in an interview about how he has 6 seasons written. Like, he has all this, like, a bunch of storylines written. Now, if they're written like this season, I'm like, maybe don't do that. But if he's saying he doesn't know the ending, that's not a good sign.
It's like how we talked about in our previous episode. Like, sometimes it's good to just, like Bad Batch, for example. You know, they have a start, they have an end. If they can do it in 3 seasons, that's great. Cut it off there and know what your ending is. When you say things like, it could go on for 5 seasons, it could go on for 6 or 7, like, that makes me really nervous.
Yeah.
Like, that makes me think, how much of a plan do you have here? And are you creating episodes like the Lizzo and Jack Black episode because you can? And you're like, oh, we have 7 seasons to tell this story. Yeah. So we can do some stupid little side quests. It's like, I don't know. That just tells me that you're not really looking at this from a writer's standpoint. It's just very casual, and that has me concerned.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Brandon Deeks wrote, the more I watch it, the better it gets. In some aspects, I still personally have issues with the cameos in general. George said it best. Jonas wrote, I enjoyed it. Moved the story forward, and the Mandos have a Senate ally. That's a big deal, even a small ally is an ally. Dawson wrote, all I ask of Star Wars is for some world building. Sometimes the IP can feel too expansive and it might need to double down in certain topics down the road, but the galaxy is huge. You can't reasonably expect every episode of something to knock it out of the park in terms of cameos, nostalgia, plot forwarding, and world building all at once.
See, I'm not really a person who watches this stuff expecting cameos or some massive nostalgia in every episode. I am a plot person. Like, it's like how you were discussing in the last few episodes, like A, B, and C plot point. For example, the Dr. Pershing stuff, very interesting. But why didn't you sprinkle it throughout the season? Why did we just limit it to 1 episode?
Yeah.
And in a 50-minute episode that didn't really have much to say, in my opinion. I don't expect too much going into these episodes. Like, I don't go in expecting Luke Skywalker or Ahsoka Tano to show up, although I love it when they do. It's just, I do expect there to be an underlying thread in these episodes. You know, like the thread that's tying everything together. It doesn't have to have these massive plot points or these plot reveals. It's just, it's helpful to kind of see the groundwork being laid, even if it's kind of in the background. And again, the reason I feel more strongly about this with Mando is because we only have 8 episodes.
Yeah.
If this was a 16 episode series, I would be way more willing to just excuse it. But you've limited yourself, and so you need to be creating plot progression. You don't really have time to do episodes like this because then you're losing the weight of whatever your finale is going to be. As much as I liked this last episode, episode 7, I'm also like, God, we couldn't have developed more to get here? You know, like it took the entire season to get to an episode like this. And even going into the finale, like I'm sure there will be some great things in the finale, but I don't know if it's necessarily going to feel like this well-earned thing because the rest of the season was so haywire and all over the place. So that's just my 2 cents.
Well, that's a good point. And you're right. I think that is the biggest issue. But you know what else? You know what it might be why they're having so few episodes? Maybe it's like a schedule thing. Where they're like, we have to have this show wrapped up and done by this month so that this other show can come out in this month. Like maybe that's what it is. Where they're like,
Then
we don't
do
want to have
less projects.
Yeah, no, I agree. I
Do
totally
less
agree.
projects, Disney. I can wait 2-3 years, 5 years even between projects. Just as long as what you're writing is a good story. Is good character dialogue, good setup, good world building. I am more than willing to wait. But they're doing
I
the
agree.
quantity
I mean,
over quality thing, and it's just driving me crazy because now we're seeing the result of that.
Yeah, and it kind of I mean, I kind of covered this in my rant yesterday or the day before about the Marvelization of Star Wars. And I think rewatching it now, I kind of come off a little negative in that clip. And I don't mean to because I am happy that we're getting more content. But in the same breath, it is frustrating to see them just make, like to your point, to make just thing after thing after thing. And because then it does just feel like they're kind of making it. And that's kind of how I feel now in this season as we're watching Mandalorian. I'm like, okay, did we really put all the thought and effort to make this the best show possible? Or is it what our commenter just said, which is you're just setting up a plot line for these other shows? And if that's the case, then don't make that content. And people were commenting on it. They're like, oh, like Star Wars fans get so, it'll be like Star Wars makes more Star Wars content. Disney fans get so mad. And like people were like commenting like, why are you so mad? And I'm like, yeah, correct. I am mad. Like don't make content if it's mediocre.
Yeah.
Like, and this was we started seeing it with Book of Boba Fett, and then Obi-Wan, like to a degree. I still think a lot of Obi-Wan was really good, but they should have. There's no excuse to not knock that out of the park. Like,
yeah, I agree.
The story's already written for you. You have the ending of where the character ends up and where he started. You literally have the character arc of like you have Ewan McGregor at the end of Revenge of the Sith, and you have Alec Guinness at the beginning of A New Hope. Like you have the archetypes for both of those, and you couldn't wrap it together like perfectly and put it in a nice bow. And so that's why I'm saying like it just doesn't seem like they care enough about it. And that's just the reality of it, you know? I mean, they are here to make money at the end of the day. So I guess I can't blame them for that, but it's still
you can make money and still tell a really good story. You have all the tools directly in front of you. The problem is Star Wars has become very corporate.
Yeah. Yeah, it is what it is. We've come to get used to it after the sequels. Pinky wrote, different, but that's why I liked it. Jake wrote, it's a fun side quest on a cool planet that also furthers the main plot. I don't know why so many people are upset about this. Episode 2 was bad, but that's really it. No, disagree. Episode 2 is The Mines of Mandalore, wasn't it? Yeah, that was a good episode. No, this one, dude, it furthered the plot for 2 minutes at the very end.
5 minutes at the beginning, 5 minutes at the end.
Again, take this episode. Here's what we have to do, fellow Star Wars fans. Take this episode and compare it to some of the best TV shows of all time. True Detective, Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, The Sopranos. All of these shows, compare it to those. And does it hold up the same way in terms of the storytelling and the character development? It won't. It doesn't. Okay? And that's why we have to be brutally honest with it. Okay? We should expect the best. Don't settle for mediocrity.
And it's okay to have constructive criticism.
Yeah, 100%. That's what makes these conversations fun. I felt like this was Jason wrote, I felt like this was one of the weaker episodes of the series, even with BDH at the helm, Bryce Dallas Howard. I didn't expect Jack Black to be in Star Wars. Then again, I don't think anyone did. As for the individual who played his wife, she isn't worthy of a name mention. So as far as she who will not be named, it would seem they're just letting anyone into my beloved Star Wars, which I hope doesn't continue. Christopher Lloyd was another unexpected guest, but I felt he fit better into Star Wars than the other two. The whole good cop, bad cop trope was also completely overused. Yeah, I agree with all this.
Yeah.
Lizzo, they just gave her a part because she's famous right now, which is a mistake. Jack Black, at least, is an actor, and I enjoy him, and he did kind of fit into the episode. Christopher Lloyd completely fit. I just don't like the writing they did for him. It was just way too quick, and like his explanations didn't really make all that much sense. Like, I still don't understand why he was having the droids malfunction in the city. For what reason? To like ruin democracy there? Or I don't know. I don't get that. That was just not good writing or good character development. And then the good cop, bad cop trope thing, like 100% completely overused when they were at like the droid bar or whatever. I mean, that's what a lot of people think too. A lot of people said I enjoyed wrote I enjoyed Jack Black and Christopher Lloyd. Lizzo was a letdown because she can't act. Completely true. And like, it's not just because I don't love Lizzo to begin with. She just can't act. We talked about this in the episode already, our breakdown, but like she just talks at the camera and at the characters, and you're like, I don't buy it. I just don't. It's not believable.
Yep.
And at least with Christopher Lloyd and Jack Black, they're actually actors, and they look like they kind of belong in Star Wars. Scott said
Barbie Island Princess, man.
Yeah. Scott said the celebrity stunt casting of Jack Black and Lizzo was an unnecessary distraction that took me out of the story. I didn't feel that way about Christopher Lloyd, who was seamlessly woven into the narrative. Yeah, I think for the most part, but again, his writing for his character was stupid. I don't understand his motive still. It just wasn't well tied up.
I don't know. He could have been like, cut Lizzo out of the picture, put Jack Black there, and then have Christopher Lloyd's character be furious with Jack Black's character because maybe Jack Black's character was once a separatist, and then he turned Imperial, and then Christopher Lloyd's character was like, nope, don't like that, and then he creates this scheme to overthrow Jack Black.
Yeah, that's better. But that would take too much time, and God forbid we have an hour and 15 long episode, or maybe a two-parter of the same arc. God forbid. Now let's cram everything in 40 minutes.
Actually, you know what it's like, dude? You know what it's like? And just like how you keep bringing up Sopranos, you know how I'm going through Columbo right now? Each Columbo episode is an hour and 15 minutes to like an hour and 32 minutes. But there are only like 6 episodes in a season.
Yeah.
Why didn't they just do that? Like,
well,
is it going to kill
expensive.
them?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what their deal
Don't
is
you
with these
dare.
short
Nobody
episodes.
can ever tell me, oh, Disney can't do it because it's so expensive. Shut up. They have the money.
No, you're right. You're totally right. All right, last one. Neil wrote, well, that was fun. It was a fun episode, and I'm going to keep saying that until I feel better. It was fun-ish. There was a lot I did enjoy about the episode. A separatist loyalist coming up decades later. Love seeing battle droids, clever writing. I think the episode was told in the wrong format. Like a piece of Star Wars animation. Yep, our heroes end up on a utopia planet with a wacky droid problem that includes some clever commentary on society's ever-growing dependence on technology, with a couple of celebrity voice appearances to top it all off. Yeah, correct. Totally. This episode felt like an episodic sci-fi series, which is a format that I love, but you can't do it if you only have 8 episodes. Totally. He says, look,
I think everybody's on the same page as us.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I'm a fan of Jack Black, Christopher Lloyd. You can do no wrong, but the celebrity appearances this episode really took us out of the universe, along with the very intentional way they avoided saying Anakin Skywalker and whatever the hell, the weird knighting sequence. It just took me out of it. Wait, avoided saying Anakin Skywalker. What was that?
Yeah, because the Count Dooku's character, he's like, Dooku was a visionary before he was taken out by the Jedi, and then he gets stunned.
The season honestly doesn't even feel like The Mandalorian. 100%. Let's be clear, there are tons of side stories in the first 2 seasons were full of side quests, but they were better tied to the central focus of the season, and we knew what focus season 1, protect the child at all costs, season 2, deliver the child. There are 2 episodes left in the season, and I couldn't tell you what the heck the point of season 3 is. Plenty of great stories have been told with focus being revealed near the end, but it's not what we've come to expect of this show. I still really enjoy watching it every week, but the hype and excitement the show used to bring me is fading.
Who wrote that one?
Neil.
They're all really well-worded comments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think everybody shares the same frustrations.
Yeah.
You know, at least the last 2 seasons had a direction, and we knew where we were going, and you could see that underlying thread throughout all of the episodes. Yeah. So you had that connective tissue, but now all these episodes are like kind of random, and we don't really know what they're building towards. And again, like the season finale could be a total banger, but it's not going to feel totally earned because of the way the rest of the season has turned out. So
yeah,
I think everybody's on the same page with the Lizzo and Jack Black stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think with that, we'll wrap up our comments for episode 6, and we can jump into episode 7, The Spies.
The Spies.
This one was a little bit more positively received. I think people tended to like this one a little bit more.
Gee, I can't imagine why.
Because it was better.
Well, I think having Dave Filoni on the writing credits definitely helped.
Yeah,
Especially because he's been so AWOL with Ahsoka.
Yeah. He should be the writer on all these episodes. I don't know why Jon Favreau didn't have him in on more. Maybe he was involved as more of a consultant. They just didn't credit him. I don't know. But you can tell the difference with him being on the writing credits for this one.
Also, after the way the season has gone, I'm like, I don't think Jon Favreau knows how to write for TV.
Not for live action. He does for the animated stuff, but it's a totally different form. Also, guys, we already broke down this like scene by scene. So if you guys want to watch that full breakdown on this, go to our page and you can see that's been uploaded for this episode. So we talk about everything a little bit more in depth if you guys want to watch that. These are just the comments we're reading today. Craig wrote, "This is what I was wanting from this season. Much better than the rest." Seabass wrote, "Best episode of season 3 so far." Gertrude wrote, why all the seasons never had this level of greatness. Red Ring wrote, "Best episode of the season." You can see the pattern here. People tend to like this one a bit more. Derek wrote, "Loved the episode. Mad that it took this long to get here. I feel like we should be charging Disney for my therapy after the debacle that was episode 6 this season. Then suddenly turning it on in episode 7, that's too much whiplash on my fanboy heart." That's pretty funny. Galaxy Ace wrote, "Probably the best Mandalorian episode yet." Francis wrote, "Really, really good, but I've been very frustrated with season 3 overall." I don't know how you wouldn't be frustrated, like, unless you're lying to yourself, you know? Unless you're just pretending that everything's been perfect. Like, we talked about this in the episode, but, like, there's an objectively correct way to write a story, and this is not really following that format. It's just too hard to follow, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Keith wrote, "I feel anytime Dave Filoni is involved, we get something worthwhile, but it seems his lack of involvement this season, the writing has really suffered. He's obviously really concentrating on the Ahsoka show. That being said, we got a great episode, but it's too little too late for this season."
I have to agree with that. I mean, for everything that I liked about this episode, I'm like, you didn't earn it up until this point, and I'm so disappointed. I'm so disappointed.
Yeah, it just it is too little too late. Like, you can't only have 1 or 2 good episodes and then say it's a great season. It's like,
yep.
I'm not over that whole Dr. Pershing episode. What was that? That had to be I
need Disney to pay for my
Star Pilot Alliance show,
wasted time
thing or whatever. Probably the best Mandalorian episode yet. Yeah, I doubt that. I think season 2 had a couple better ones, and Book of Boba Fett had some better Mandalorian episodes in it.
Book of Boba Fett had the 2 best Mandalorian episodes ever. They were so hype.
Yeah, it was amazing. Brandon wrote, "Great, but this is all setting us up for major heartbreak." And then under that, Crank Fassel wrote, "Din will die in the next episode." See, this was something I thought might be a possibility, but you said something more interesting, which is Mind Flayer, which I've been thinking about that, and I think that's probably a more likely possibility.
I mean, otherwise, why would they introduce the Mind Flayer earlier in the season?
And the other thing, 100%, and if they're making a Mandoverse movie, which we talked about, okay, it's the Mandoverse. Like, you can't not have it in it. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Yeah. Yeah.
So
and
I think it's too big of a risk to kill off a character like Din Djarin because he's so universally beloved, and like, yeah, he's gotten backseated this season and he doesn't have that development that a lot of people are craving, but if you kill him off, he's the face of all of these shows, and they'd probably lose more money if they killed him off versus keeping him alive. Yeah. Which has to be their main motivation, I would gather.
Yeah. That would not be a smart move. But I think something's going to happen to him, right?
I mean, what do you think, though? You think the Empire could brainwash him to be a soldier for them, kind of like they Winter Soldier him?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think it's going to end on a dark note next week. And then they'll probably have some Ahsoka episodes dedicated to him, too. Because you can't just have a season all about him anymore.
Dude, just
make
wait.
it about others.
Watch Luke or Ahsoka come in the season finale, and they save the day.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I'm
Like-
like, it'll probably be Ahsoka, but yeah,
I have to imagine if they were going to bring a Jedi in for the season finale, it would definitely be Ahsoka because Bo knows Ahsoka directly,
yeah.
and she would absolutely call on her if she needed to.
Well, same. I mean, Mando. She knows Mando too, and the
She
baby
does,
boy.
but there is like that pre-established relationship with Bo and
True.
Ahsoka.
Jared wrote, I wonder who the spies are. Most likely the armorer in the Mad Max Mandos or someone on Navarro. It's got to be Axe Woves, dude. And the other chick with the braids on her hair.
Casca Reeves.
Yeah. Like, she's also super sus.
Or it's Jack Black and Lizzo.
Could be.
They're
They
the
seem to
spies.
know everything about them.
They know everything
for
about
whatever
Mando
reason.
and Bo. Yeah, I think Casca Reeves and Axe Woes are very likely candidates, but so is the armor. And here's the other thing too: there is no way the Mad Max Mandos were on Mandalore for the entire time and they didn't see the Empire coming down to create that kind of facility without them like getting some kind of help.
Yeah, but they looked like they were in pretty rough shape. I guess maybe that's more motivation for them to spy. I don't know.
It's called the Spies. So, I don't know. If you're picking likeliness, you think it's Axe Woves who's the most likely candidate.
Yeah, he flew away and then we didn't see him. And then they
Yeah, so did the armorer, dude.
I know. That's what I mean. I don't trust her at all. The more I think about it, it could be a red herring again, but the armorer makes the most sense. Like with her helmet, she makes the armor. They have the new armor. They're on Mandalore. She's a zealot. Like
Maybe the armorer recruited Axe Woves and Casca Reeves. Maybe she has her own little faction, her own little Mandalorian army.
Yeah.
You know, maybe she created this
I don't care
disbelief.
for her. She annoys me. I don't like how everyone else gives her so much respect. Like, you haven't earned it.
Yeah, like what did you
I
do
know
to
who
earn all
you
this
are.
respect?
You've done nothing. Back to the Future fan wrote another very thoughtful comment. I'll try to summarize it because it's really long. I don't want to sound like a hater or sound like I don't appreciate what we're getting. These are just my opinions. This was the episode everyone was excited for. I'm sorry, but it was kind of average. It felt rushed. So many plot points had to happen. The Shadow Council was cool, but even that was kind of a letdown because they're obviously just setting up the sequel trilogy, which I don't like. There's no way you can convince me there's people surviving on the surface of Mandalore this entire time since they bombed it. The sail barge was a cool design. They never saw the Imperial base, never saw a cruiser bringing in supplies because the base didn't just show up. Yeah, that's true. It's kind of like what you were just saying. Now, like for Bo-Katan, isn't this like her fourth attempt to take over Mandalore?
Yes.
She just stood there while Din was fighting for his life. They couldn't have found another way around. Her first day of being a leader got a lot of Mandos killed, specifically Paz, because she couldn't cut a bigger hole in the wall. Now Din can't seem to hold his own in a fight anymore. Yeah, he's just kind of a lame, just I don't know.
He's just a lame
Muted
bystander. He
version
doesn't
of
do
himself.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He seemed to be a much better fighter in earlier seasons.
In Book of Boba Fett, you know that opening scene in Book of Boba Fett where he goes in and he kills the guy that he came to collect bounty on? That's like peak Din Djarin right there. Like, and he fights with the Darksaber and he accidentally cuts himself. Mm-hmm. Where's that guy been?
I don't know. He's just not in his own show, I guess.
It's just not him. It doesn't feel like him
any badass
anymore.
moments. I agree. Him getting captured was the only significant thing that happened. Yeah, kind of, for him at least. They've had Grogu spend more time with Bo-Katan than his own father. This is weird, and they won't let Din call himself a father. It's just not much comparing it to the rest of the season. This is fair. And one more thing. If the armor is the spy, the show will have to give Din up the way that will honestly be very disappointing. Because a Christian religious person making Din's religion turn out to be evil just leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Wait, reread that last part?
If the armorer is the spy and the show will have Din give up the way, that will honestly be very disappointing because as a Christian religious person, making Din's religion turn out to be evil just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I don't agree with that at all. I think, who cares? This isn't necessarily a one-to-one comparison for all religions. It is a religion in a way, and it's more of a cult, which is why I would love to see him give it up. I think the whole way creed is stupid, and we already talked about this. He kind of gave it up last season, and then he just regressed and went right back to it. For what? For why? We don't know. He's just trying to impress the armorer for some reason, which I still don't understand. So that last part I don't really necessarily agree with. I think he should give up the way. I don't know. What do you think?
There's just been, we've had so little insight into Din's character and his opinions on things this season. Like, how does he feel about it? Mm-hmm. We didn't even know how he felt about, like, the Darksaber or Bo until this episode. And even then, that was kind of vague. I'm like, then could we have seen, like, Din's frustration with Bo-Katan as a potential leader? Why are we only learning about this now? You know, like, he doesn't even have that established of a relationship with the armorer. So tell me, why does he need to go back so badly and redeem himself? Like, how does he feel about that? What does he think that's going to do for him? We didn't even get any opinions on that. He's just doing it because he was told to do it. I just think they've really diluted and watered down Din and made him a less interesting character this season. And they've pushed Bo-Katan to the forefront, when in reality, both characters have so much interest and intrigue to them that if you put them next to each other, it should create this really interesting conflict and this dynamic.
I don't mind them pushing her to the front. I just think they shouldn't have sidelined him as much. Like, I think she's a great character, but
no, she's awesome.
They've done it at the sacrifice of him.
Also, at the same time, they're kind of diluting Bo-Katan's story. She's had, exactly like Back to the Future Fan 88 has said, Bo-Katan has had the exact same character arc in, like, every show she's appeared in. Mm-hmm. How is this any different?
Yeah, it's not. It's really not. Kyle, he replied to this comment. The worst part about this whole season is they made Dim seem weak and like a background character. True, while Bo is the lead. She has a history of being a terrorist and a failure. Din told her in this episode her story isn't written yet. I think, it has, and it's not a good one. She betrayed her family and all of Mandalore to seize power, and let's not forget about her and Pre Vizsla massacred that village of innocent people back in the day. Do they expect us to forget that? Yeah, that's a fair point.
Dude, the thing that gets me is, why haven't... Din could have asked Bo, you were a part of Death Watch, why did you leave? Mm-hmm. Because that was an integral part of Bo's character in the Clone Wars. That she followed Pre Vizsla to a T, and she did all these horrendous things as a member of Death Watch. And yet we've seen, like, no comment or conversation between Din and Bo, or something from Bo explaining why she left that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden she's super judgy towards Din because he's a child of the Watch. I'm like, excuse me, lady, you were in Death Watch. You should understand him more because you were a part of that.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a good point. I guess they don't really tie that in as much.
They're missing out on so many interesting character opportunities and story points, and it's just like they gloss over so much of it, and I don't understand how you could do that. It seems to be so obvious how to write it and write it well.
Yeah. Steve wrote, I've given up on the season. The land ship was silly as another giant monster, as was another giant monster. Grogu did nothing while Din was captured and more than likely killed. They should have had Paz Vibroblade, one of the red suit dudes, the Praetorian Guards. I had no idea who all the people in the hologram were, given I haven't read the books or cartoons. And look, this is fair. I know other Star Wars fans would shit on him like they shit on me because they're like, oh, you don't know who Glup Shido is. This is a very valid comment. I didn't know who all the people in the hologram was because I haven't read the books or cartoons. This is my criticism with Star Wars shows. You assume everyone knows everything. Like, you just assume they all know they've read Legends and they've played all the video games and they've watched all the shows, and that's not the case. So I empathize with this because you're like, what's going on? Like, I don't know who those people are, why this is super significant.
This also contributes to the Marvelization of Star Wars. Marvel does the exact same thing. They expect you to know everything. Yeah. And they don't have any movies that stand too well on their own.
No, they used to. The Iron Man movies versus Captain America used to be able to stand on their own. But now it's like Ant-Man. We talked about this the other day too. It's like, I'm not interested. There's too much stuff going on. I'm lost.
There's too much work. I have to
go watch 8 movies to go watch this movie.
Yeah, there's too much work.
Yeah.
Last comment. Think that's not a totally unfair thing to say. Is everybody? I've noticed that, like, people will comment on my videos. I'm like, you don't know who Captain Pelion is? I'm like, no, I've never read Heir to the Empire, and I shouldn't have to enjoy a good story. A good story should be able to stand on its own. I shouldn't have to do all of this homework to enjoy a piece of content.
Yeah, dude, you're so right, because I had comments like that on mine too. They're like, I'm surprised you didn't know who Captain Pelorian was or whatever. I'm like, you're surprised? Dude, what? How am I supposed to know who all these people are? Like, it's so much you have to ingest. And like, I'm not just saying that for me, which by the way, I still was able to enjoy it and I could connect the dots kind of. But I'm saying it for people like this guy who just commented, where it's like, what about people who just want to enjoy the content? They don't want to be around the gatekeeping Star Wars fans who are like, you call yourself a Star Wars fan and you haven't read every single book that was ever written on it? You know? Like, those people, regular people want to enjoy these shows too. So that's
and I think that was the appeal of Mando at first. That's why Mando season 1 and 2 was so appealing.
I agree.
Because they didn't put... and don't get me wrong, it's like, it's okay to have characters like Bo-Katan, whereas like, if you have knowledge of her from the Clone Wars, yeah, it's going to mean more to you. But at the same time, I don't feel like they totally alienated a part of an audience with her introduction.
Yeah. Yeah. And then obviously my whole problem is the Book of Boba Fett thing. The whole audience you had watching The Mandalorian before is now lost this season. And that's probably where this guy came from. He was probably watching the first 2 seasons and was really enjoying it. And now watched the show and is like, wait, how did Grogu get back to him? What's happening? How can he jump and force jump and stuff now? Oh my God. So
that really killed this season. I
didn't think it was going to, but it totally did. You're right.
They needed to keep Din and the child separate. You needed to create that longing for them to get back together so you can focus in on Din and Bo's relationship. Like, it's the season would have been much better for it, and I think people would have appreciated it more.
I agree. And it ended up really crippling this season in a way I didn't think it necessarily would have, but it did. Last comment from Ike. I loved it. Imagine if all Star Wars content just came to an abrupt stop for 20 years and we were left with just novels, fan films, fan art, cosplay, annual conventions celebrating the same characters over and over again. I remember seeing Return of the Jedi in theaters when I was 11. Ooh, we got an older fan here. Now, and there was just silence. Now my kids get Star Wars every week. If I could tell myself in 1983 there will be an entire series dedicated to the people of that Boba Fett guy, but some of the episodes go off on a tangent of other things. The kid looking back at me would say, how many commercials? None? What time does it come on? Anytime you want. Will they play reruns of my favorites? You can replay and rewind. Mind blown. We're so lucky, and I'm sorry for the long old man rant. I feel like Kevin Smith, and I earned it. That's fair.
That's completely fair. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm glad these older fans are enjoying it. That's great.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
We are a little spoiled, but at the same time, I think 2 things can be true at once. We can have these shows come out, but they can also be really, really good. Like, they don't have to be mediocre.
Yeah. And I think I just don't think the bar is super high right now. It's just like we're just pumping out content over and over and over again, but content that doesn't necessarily have a lot of value or anything to say.
Yeah.
And I just miss the days where we got fewer projects that had way more value. Yeah. You know, that's part of the reason why Rebels hit so well, is because Rebels came out during a time when there wasn't a lot of new Star Wars content to look forward to. It came out in 2014, and the following year we knew The Force Awakens was coming, but Rebels was like the only new Star Wars thing at the time.
Yeah.
But the writing quality is a lot higher than most of the stuff that they're doing nowadays, is because it was so limited. And there wasn't that much more to expect. And with the more projects that we've gotten, the more drop off in quality in these shows we're seeing.
Yeah, I agree with you. Overall, I really liked that episode. I appreciate these comments. Guys, thanks for writing in. Please continue to keep writing in to our email at anotherstarwarspod@gmail.com, or write us in the community page, which is what we've been reading from here. Also, go to our comment section if you want to write here. Let us know what you guys' theories are for next week, how you're feeling overall if you didn't voice your opinion on our previous community page. We only have 1 episode left of the show, which is, it seems like we're getting cheated.
Weird.
Like 8 episodes is also, like, a lot of it was happening during Bad Batch, and like I was kind of more distracted by Bad Batch at the time. So now it's like, all right, we have 1 episode left. Okay. So let us know what your thoughts are on it below. Also, make sure to click like, subscribe, but click the notification bell so you know when our reaction videos come out, because obviously we're going to do reactions. I think there'll be a lot to react to. I feel good about it. I think this was a great episode, and I think the next one will be a good ending episode. I hope so, at least. It's going to set up a lot. But obviously we'll do a breakdown on that too, and you guys want to be subscribed to that to see Melissa's awesome reaction and my awesome reaction that's going to get 1/10 of the amount of views. So click like, subscribe. Thanks for participating. That's what makes the show fun. And yeah.
Yeah, I did enjoy episode 7. It's just I struggle with it because I'm like, you didn't earn the build up to this. The whole season has been extremely disjointed, and to have one good episode, like you said, does not make a great season overall. And I expect that there will be some truth in the finale, but I don't know how I'm going to feel about it as a whole. But, we're just going to have to see. Do you have any other theories since we last recorded our episode before we get into next week? Any final theories on your end?
No, I think we covered it all today. I think it's going to
Yeah, I saw this one theory going around. Yeah, I saw this one theory going around that I was like, I don't believe this. But somebody was like, is Din the spy? And I was like, I don't think so, but it is an interesting thing to bring up.
Yeah, he's not. He's way too weird and loyal to his stupid cult.
I think he's been too sidelined. I think he's been too sidelined to be a spy. Otherwise, they could have hinted at that throughout the season.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
interesting theory, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know what to expect going into the finale. I'm going to be honest with you. The one thing I will say I will not be shocked at if we get is Ahsoka coming in to save the day. I could absolutely see that happening. Yeah. But I think it's that or Axe Woves and Casca Reeves and the Armorer, or God forbid Jack Black and Lizzo are the spies. So yeah. I guess we'll find out next week.
Find out next week, guys. Let us know your theories below, and we'll see you on our reactions and breakdown of the season finale of Mandalorian Season 3. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye guys.